Why hello, good people. If you're wondering what the heck is going on with my face, I tried to like coordinate a little bit, you know? Just to add some spunk. I like playing around with makeup, but admittedly, I am not the best at it. So if it's too distracting, just let me know in the comments. Welcome to my Cinderella is Dead book talk. I have lots of notes and lots of stickers, so let's jump right in. Also, I'm not just wearing a black t-shirt, okay? It's got like pretty stuff on it, okay? Don't at me. I dress up. So my overall review of Cinderella is Dead by Kaylon Bayron is, I gave it a 3-star, okay? But don't let that deter you. I know like 3-star is kind of low on my star rating. However, it was only because I didn't like necessarily enjoy the book. Maybe enjoy is not the right word, but like I didn't love reading it, but I did recognize how important this book is, and I like respect the author so much for writing it. And there were things I did like about it, but there were also a lot of things that I didn't like about it, but most of the things that I didn't like about it had to do with like the writing style. Rude. Do I just wait? I'm just gonna wait until it's over. That way you don't have to deal with that. Can I do it? Nope. This is the last video I'm filming in this dorm with the AC. So this is the last time we'll have this problem. My next dorm that I'm moving into on Sunday, the day you see this video, hopefully, maybe later, but I will hopefully be moved into my new dorm, which doesn't even have AC. So, go us. It's a blessing and a curse, am I right? Yeah. I will take this time to show you my shark. His name is Eugene, and he protects my dorm. You know, as whales books, I should probably have a whale instead of a shark. It stopped! Okay, so, where was I? So, the main stuff that I didn't like about this book was like the writing style, and a lot of things were wrong with it, like plot holes and stuff that should have been caught in editing. So if you have not read this book is about our main character, Sophia. She's in this kingdom where government is sort of run by the story of Cinderella. So this is 200 years after Cinderella was alive. All of the rules of society are modeled after Cinderella's story, and it's very corrupt, it's very misogynistic. I will read you the set of rules. Okay, 1, a minimum of 1 pristine copy of Cinderella will be kept in every household. 2, the annual ball is a mandatory event. 3 trips are permitted, after which attendees are considered forfeit. 3, participants in unlawful, unsanctioned unions will be considered forfeit. That one is a thing. 4, all members of households in Versailles are, I say Versailles, it might be like I'm treating it like Versailles, like the Treaty of Versailles, but I could be wrong about that pronunciation. Anyway, that's how I'm gonna say it. All members of households in Versailles are required to designate 1 male of legal age to be the head of the household, and his name will be registered with the palace. All activities undertaken by any member of the household must be sanctioned by the head of the household. So we're very patriotic here. 5, for their protection, women and children must be in their permanent place of residence by the stroke of 8 each night. 6, a copy of all applicable laws and decrees along with an approved portrait of His Majesty will be displayed in every household at all times. Now that I'm looking back at this, the number 5, their permanent place of residence by the stroke of 8 each night, that was never brought up in the book. All the other ones were brought up, but this curfew, I feel like it never is actually a plot point in this book. Okay, continuing with our summary. So our main character is named Sophia, and she's a 16-year-old girl. The first ball is being held, and she is required to go. Now, all the women at these balls, they have to be chosen by a man to be married. If you aren't chosen the first time you go, it's kind of like a really big hit on your family. You are allowed to try 2 more times to be chosen by a man, but if you're not chosen by the third one, you're considered forfeit. And it's not really clear what happens to the forfeited children. I think they either go to like the borderlands to be a slave or they're executed. So we're already establishing some crazy paradigms here. So our main character is in love with this girl named Erin. So right there's an unlawful union. So there's going to be some trouble with that. Sophia wants to convince Erin to run away with her, like skip the ball, run away, get away from this terrible kingdom where they can't be themselves. But Erin, she has this sense of duty to her family and she doesn't want to let them down. She doesn't want to like create more trouble for them than they already are in, if that makes sense. The girls end up going to the ball and crazy things ensue. The book continues. Voila. I didn't love this book, again, because of the writing and the editing. However, I do think it's super important. So we have like a black, queer, young main character, which I think is super important for books today in society, especially YA. So pros, I love the representation, and they put a really dark twist on the Cinderella story in here. Like, so they take the original, everybody kind of accepts the original as the truth. However, we learned that the truth is actually much darker and twisted than the actual Cinderella story, and I loved that version. However, the things I didn't like about the book have to do with this book has a lot of telling instead of showing. You know, you're always taught that you need to, if you're making an argument in your writing, you need to show it instead of just tell us and expect us to believe you. You have to like build that up. But I don't think a lot of it was supported in this book. I think she just kind of said something and then expected her readers to take it at face value. Now, with all of those things that I didn't like about this book, then again, a lot of them can be, I don't want to say excused, but like a lot of them don't necessarily have to be flaws about the book because this is written towards a younger audience. If I read this when I was 13, I definitely wouldn't have as much problems with the writing as I have now. But with that said, there are a lot more middle grade books or books written towards a younger audience that I feel like don't have these problems. Okay, well, at this point in the video, I'm going to move into a spoilery discussion. If you are planning on reading this book and you don't want to be spoiled, bye-bye. I'll see you next video. But if you're not planning on reading the book, if you've already read the book, or if you don't care about being spoiled and you just want to have a good time with me, then keep watching and we'll have that good time. We will. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the characters. So let's start with Sophia. I have a set of notes, so if you see me look down, it's because I'm reading my notes. Okay, so the main thing I didn't like about Sophia was that she seemed kind of shallow or not complex, and also there's a discontinuity about her. So at the beginning of the book, we see she's like this really sassy, rebellious girl. For an example, on page 55, she's ripping into these guys to Luke's defense, and it is crazy. And like everything she says is so like witty and sassy, and I loved it. So I thought that was gonna be, throughout the book, she was gonna be like really, really impulsive, witty, sassy, like she will not take that BS from anyone. But it didn't continue. It showed up at the very end, at the Winter Cotillion, when she's talking to the king, but through the middle of the book, like, it just disappears. She's not witty anymore, she's not sassy, she's just kind of bland. An example of this is page 223. She and Constance are meeting Amina for the first time, and they're kind of like, Constance and Amina are kind of arguing a little bit, but you know, it's kind of the same situation. So Luke and those other boys that were like hackling Luke, Sophia was really defensive, and she's like sassy and like spitting venom at those guys. But here, when Constance and Amina are arguing, she's a mediator. She's just like, oh, come on guys, we need to stop fighting, let's just move on. I didn't like that. I thought it was just kind of not who Sophia was. So I feel like that kind of happens a lot with a lot of the characters in this book. There's this discontinuity. From what I understand in writing a book, a lot of the times you're supposed to develop your characters very thoroughly, and then your characters kind of help you move the plot along because of their natural responses to things. Like, your characters move the story along, you don't move your story along using your characters. If that makes no sense. What I'm trying to say is that I think she was kind of making her characters say whatever she wanted them to say just to move the plot along out of convenience, even though it may not have been something that character would have said, or like something that character would have done because of their personality. But I do like how determined she is to bring down this patriarch, and I really like how she just kind of has an open heart for a lot of the people around her, like Liv and Aaron and Luke and Constance and Amina. I like that she has this willingness to help the people around her. Now, moving on to Constance. The problem I found with Constance was that I had very high expectations for her and she didn't meet them. So at the beginning, we are introduced. I had to plug in my camera. Sorry if the angle changed. Anyway, so we're introduced to Constance, and we're told that she is this bad A chica that doesn't take nonsense from anyone. She can fight really well. She's murdered a lot of people, apparently. She's just like a really cool girl. However, it's the whole case of the telling us and not showing us. So we were told this, but at no point in the book I thought she did anything really cool and badass. There was this one point where she held a knife to a guy's throat, but at the same time, that guy was a weenie. Like, he peed his pants. It didn't give her credibility at all. Like, we know that Sophia has no experience with daggers and fighting and everything, but she's able at the end of the book to use the knife to like stab the king and twice and kill him, but we don't see Constance doing anything beyond the skill of Sophia. She didn't do anything that we would expect someone with a lot of skill to do, because everything she did, Sophia was able to do, and we know Sophia has no skill. So I wish that we had more opportunity to see the cool side of Constance. An example of how we are told that Constance is this skilled fighting queen. We're not shown that because on page 228, I don't have enough time to wait for it to stop, so we're just gonna keep going. On page 228, Amina is like being a little threatening. She's like, don't let this facade fool you. I'm not your granny. I'm not to be trifled with. Do you understand? Constance yelps and replies, all right. Like, why? Amina didn't even say something that threatening. Okay, moving on to Amina. I love the fact that Amina is like a witch, not a fairy godmother. They make that very clear. Like, she's not very bippity boppity boo. She's very, I will kill you. I love all of the dark twists that Bayron puts on the Cinderella story in this book. Love them. That's exactly my cup of tea. One thing I didn't like about Amina is that, so she's built up as this like all-powerful witch, mage, magical being, whatever it is, but we don't actually see her doing any organic magic. All of the magic she does is out of a grimoire or using some magical substance like a powder or a potion, that sort of thing. And that sort of magic, like, maybe it's not the case in this world, but that sort of magic, to me, it always felt like everyone could do that if they had access to the same grimoire or the same substances. So like, why is Amina special? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, like, she's 200 years old. I get that, but that's also because of a spell that she got out of the grimoire. So I wish she had done more organic magic. I think it would have built up her credibility and made us respect her as a magical creature more. The last character I want to talk about is the king, or Manfred, Prince Charming. The whole thing with his like stealing the life force from other people to make himself young. It's cool, but the thing is, I predicted it from the very beginning. I don't know if this is really Bayron's fault or like the writing's fault. Maybe it's just because I've read a lot of stories with the same trope, like Burning Sky by Sherry Thomas. That one, The Bane, does the same thing, and I love that series. I've read it, I think, 4 times. So good. There's also I think there's a pagan god in Supernatural that does the same thing with poker, and it's really cool. I think, so that happens in a lot of stories that I've already read, and so I kind of figured that this was going to be the same thing, and it was. I don't know if that's really Bayron's like fault that I predicted it, but I think it also could have been more original. The thing I didn't like about his character was a lot of the same tell instead of show thing. He wasn't as wicked as I thought he could be because of his actions. Like at the Winter Cotillion, when they all got there, the king was the one who stood up himself and explained like the rules and the premise over the Winter Cotillion, and it kind of seems like he was doing his own dirty work when he has a lot of like the Viscount or all of these like henchmen that could have done that for him, if that makes sense. So if he's like this like all-powerful king with a bunch of loyal men and this power over everyone, why does he have to do his own dirty work? That sort of thing. So it's like writing the actions to match what kind of tone you want the character to portray is a thing in this book. Also, the things he says. So at the Winter Cotillion, he says, quote, "I've spent more years in this land than any other living creature. I've molded it, shaped it into everything you see before you. Every man from here to Shion bows to me because I will it to be so." See, it would have been menacing. However, we get no new information here. We know all of this. And I think her tone, what she's going for, is similar to what Red Queen did with Maven when he says, "The truth is what I make it. I could set this world on fire and call it rain." Like that, I think they're going for the same thing there, but I don't like Red Queen. Let me say this right now. I do not like that book, but I did like that part of it because it's so like, that's just power right there. Like that is menacing. And I think that Bayron was going for the same thing with Manfred. She didn't achieve it at the same level, if that makes sense. And I think it's because her dialogue is really predictable and unoriginal, and just like she had a more vibrant diction, more oomph to her dialogue. I think it could have elevated the book a lot. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about the plot. All right, so get comfy here. So the plot, the main thing I didn't like about the plot was all of the plot holes and like the sense of convenience. I felt like, why was Constance in the mausoleum when Sophia got there? And why did she have a change of clothes in the mausoleum? Like, it's just convenient. Like, we never learn why. There's no reason why. It's just convenient. And can we talk about the crow? What? So Constance and Sophia spend all of this time hiking through the woods and trying to get to Amina's cottage. And when we get there, we learn that there's a crow that has been following them the entire time. No mention of this, no introduction of the crow. Like, what the heck? Like when I saw that, like they reached the clearing where Amina's house is, and then she describes the crow like swooping in that's been following them the entire time, apparently. And the crow is only mentioned 2 other times in the book, and the other 2 times are both at the Winter Cotillion. The second time it says Amina's familiar. The crow was never introduced as a familiar. It was just a crow. Why do I all of a sudden know that it's Amina's familiar? I get it. Like, it's a witch trope. Like, if she had a really educated audience, that they would probably guess, they would know that the crow is Amina's familiar. Again, I do believe this book is targeted towards a younger audience because of the way it's written, because of like the things that happen in it. So a younger audience probably would need you to explain how the crow is a familiar. Also, the crow is mentioned one more time in like the heat of the battle in the Winter Cotillion, but it does nothing. Like, Why is the girl even in the book? Okay, another thing that I was very confused about was why the king had so much interest in Sophia. Because, so he's older than 200, right? And so he's been ruling over this kingdom for multiple centuries. Why does one girl who evades him and like rebels so important to him? I'm sure he has had dozens and dozens of people who run away and rebelled, and he probably hasn't caught them all. So why does this one girl perturb him so much? Why does he get so desperate that he creates a whole nother ball and requires every single young woman in the city to go to it? I get it, she's the main character, and she should matter. I'm not saying that she shouldn't, but I'm saying that I would have liked there to be an aspect that we could have added to Sophia's character that made the king so concerned with her, if that makes sense. Because it didn't make sense to me. Also, why was killing the king so easy? Like, Sophia, who's never tried anything like this before, has no experience fighting people, stabbing people. Why is it that the first time she tries, she succeeds? Okay, maybe not the first time, because she did stab him in the neck, and then she learned that he wouldn't die unless you like stab him in his core of energy or whatever. But that's all in the same scene. I would have liked more character development maybe if she like tried once and then she failed. She barely managed to escape, and then she learns and she develops. She goes to try again with all this new knowledge and she succeeds. It would have been really satisfying. Okay, and then I'm really confused about the whole raising the prince from the dead thing. So apparently, Amina did the spell that she used on Cinderella on her son, King Manfred, and raised him from the dead, and now their lives are intertwined. So he can't die unless she dies. But you see, it didn't make a lot of sense to me if you do it that way. Because why did he need to stay young with the girl's life force if his life force was attached to Amina's, if that makes sense? So it seems like it was redundant, like he wouldn't need to use those girls to stay alive because he was already gonna be alive as long as Amina was alive. Maybe he was just using it to look young, but at the same time, why couldn't he just use the same spell that Amina was doing and glamour himself to look young? It was a cool thing, and I really liked the evilness of doing that, like taking other people's life force. I would have liked there to be more reason for it, because it kind of doesn't make sense. Now if we switch it and say that the king raised his mother from the dead, and if he dies, she dies, I would have liked that better, because then it would have made more sense of why it was so important to him to steal the life force and stay alive, because as long as he was alive, his mother would be alive too. I think it would have made more sense that way to me. Yeah, so I'm a bit confused, but I do like it. I like the idea of it. Okay, and now I've talked a lot about the things I didn't like about the book. But I do think it's an enjoyable book. Like, it's a really good adventure, lots of fantasy, lots of magic, and also like a lot of societal commentary. You know, like I thought it was really absurd that the whole government is based around this Cinderella story, but and it is absurd, but at the same time it kind of points out how sometimes as a society, like as a real society around us today, we can also put a lot of stock in absurd narratives, and people suffer for it. I said that in my last video too, but I think it kind of points out how humans have a tendency to do that, and I think that's really nice. I also like the whole trope of this black queer young woman bringing down the patriarch. Like, yes, empower those women, empower them. And then the other thing I loved was the dark twist, how like Cinderella didn't go to the ball because she wanted a man. She went to the ball to kill the king. So this book, I really liked the idea of it. I think it had a ton ton of potential, and I was super excited for it. I think the only thing that made it worse for me was the editing. A lot of the things that I talked about that I didn't like about it could have been caught in editing. And I don't say this to be really prissy, because if you know me, like if you're watching this, you probably know me. But I'm not, and you know that I want to be a fiction editor. That's why I'm going to school. That's why I'm an English major. Like, I want to be a fiction editor. I'm not saying that to be all prissy and be like, I could have done better. I'm just saying that this book could have had a lot of societal impact and could have like blown everybody away. It had the potential if only these certain like aspects of it were better. This is a conspiracy. Do not quote me on this. But I think, now I don't know. I think what happened, this is how I imagine what happened. I think maybe this book, so Bayron started writing this book a long time ago, right? Books, a year and a half, 2 years, that's like the process takes quite a long time. So Bayron started writing this book a while ago. Then when everything started happening with like the civil rights and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, like everything sort of blew up and awareness was a really big thing. I think maybe the publishers and Bayron kind of realized that this is a really good book to publish at this time, to like raise people's awareness about the issues that are addressed in this book. I think that they thought like, oh, this is a super awesome time to release this. It was released on July 7th. And so they were like, let's speed up this process. Let's get this book out and into people's hands. But I think maybe in speeding up the process, maybe they missed a lot of things in editing, or they just kind of rushed through the editing in order to get it out. That is a complete conspiracy. I have nothing to back that up. That's just how I imagine it happened in my head, and maybe that can account for all of the mistakes that I didn't like about the book. Overall, Cinderella is Dead by Kaylon Bayron. 3 stars. I do recommend it. I do think it's a good book for everyone to read. Honestly, it's a really fun one. Don't watch this book talk and then take it as oh, Aiden didn't like it, so I shouldn't read it. Like, go read it, form your own opinions, and we'll talk. Okay, so now that I've rambled on for 49 minutes now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I have a feeling it might be a long one. And also, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end and like boosting my watch minutes. Love you. Support! So my next video is going to be, it's going to be one of 2 things. I'm thinking I might make a video about all of the books that have made me cry, which is like really impressive because it is very hard for something to make me cry, like movie, TV show, book, very hard. So I'll make a video talking about all the books that have made me cry, or I can do a video designing and making new book jackets for my books, like a little arts and crafts video, right? So I'll probably want to be one of 2. If you feel like voting on which one you want, leave a comment down below saying, Aiden, do the book jacket, or Aiden, I want to see what books made you cry, that sort of thing. If you want to stay tuned for those videos, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you get notified when I post a new video. And yes, thank you.